All right, hello again. So this office hours is going to be based on public forum content, but what we talk about today is primarily based on your guys' level and what you want to hear. I can go on the basics of what public forum is and the times and stuff, or I can go over strategy. So if you guys want to go around, say what your level is and if you know anything about it, or should I go from the basic? You can just speak out loud. Alyssa?
Do I talk about my prior experience or
Do you have any prior experience? You know what public forum is?
not with public forum specifically now?
Okay, cool. Quionzi? I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
My name's Chansey. I took a brief lesson about public forum when I first started speech and debate, so I kind of know how it goes, but I kind of forgot some stuff.
Cool. All right, and Jaden?
I don't really have any experience, but my sister did it, so I have a tiny bit of knowledge of how it goes.
Oh, who's your sister?
Sabrina.
What school does she go to?
She's going to Northwood High in the fall.
Okay, then I guess we can just start from the basics. So, public forum debate is just a specific type of debate format. It was made to be more so. The main other two types of debate are policy and Lincoln Douglas. These two debate styles have kind of gone down and more into theory-based arguments. And so public forum was created as a way to stray away from theory and to make it so that it's mainly just the arguments and we're staying just topical to what the resolution is. The reason why it's called public forum is because it's made so that anyone can walk into a round with at least a good amount of education and know what's going on in the round and can understand what's going on. So public forum in itself is I think it's one of the better ones because you actually talk about topical literature and it's not so much talking about theory and it's not talking about bald real art or any weird thing like that. So public forum is, the way it works is that you have 4 sets of speeches. You have your constructive speech in which you give your actual arguments, the rebuttal where you respond to the opponent's arguments, your summary speech. Now the summary speech, some people get confused. Summary speech, you do 2 things. Actually, you do 3 things. You continue the responses to your opponent's arguments, and B, you refute the rebuttal. So say that a person, you give your arguments, a person responds to that in the rebuttal. Then you respond to those responses and defend your arguments in the summary. You also do weighing. Weighing is just basically why is my arguments more important than the other ones? Final focus is final focus, which is the last speech, is just summarizing all the arguments in the round down to the key components. And just making it, I'm trying to make it easy for the judge to win. Sorry, for the judge to give you the ballot and to judge to give you the win. I think some of you guys are in lab 1. Yeah. So we have 2 lab 2s and 1 lab 1. So if you guys were in the lab 2, you already heard my lecture on the case creation. Jaden, I think you're going to learn about it tomorrow. So what you're going to be learning this, I have trouble the difference between summary and final. All right, we can go over that. Also, if you guys have any specific questions about public forum, just ask, because this office hours is for you guys. I'm assuming that you guys want to do, the assumption is that you guys want to do public forum in high school. This office hours is for people who want to do public forum and who want to do competitive public forum in either middle school or high school and want to know what it's about. In that case, ask whatever questions you have. Yeah, we can start just answering questions right now. I have trouble finding the difference between the summary and the final focus. Okay, so in the summary, you are basically just summary and final focus should basically be a reflection of each other. To be frank, they should basically follow one another in like what the pattern is, because your summary is just giving the it's just extending the rebuttal, defending your case, and weighing at the end. Your final focus is exactly that too. It's just based on the previous speeches. So summary, you're at like 3/4 of the round, so you've only gotten a certain amount of responses. But final focus, you're basically at the end of the round, so you had all the responses in the round. Now you're just summing it up. You're defending your argument. You're giving the thesis of what your case is, and you're saying this is the thesis of our case. Here's why you vote for us. For all these reasons, vote for me. Does that make sense? Like they're basically the same. It's just different speakers giving it. Hello, Nicole. Just letting you know that what we're doing is just ask whatever questions you have about public forum. If you want me to go over something specifically, then I'm happy to do it.
So if you're on like the negation, and since you're having your final focus after the affirmation, does that mean that you can still like refute some stuff that the other team might have said in their final focus?
Yeah, so that brings up two things. One, the neg is not so what you're so in a public forum debate, I know what you're thinking is that you have the app speech, then the neg speech, the app speech, then the neg speech. However, that's not always the case. The neg can start first and then the app can be after. That's one of the caveats of public forum is that you can start with a negation speaking and then the app can come after. You're asking if the second final focus can respond to stuff in the first final focus. Definitely, of course you can. As long as it's not, as long as the opponent, you can still respond to stuff as long as the opponent's, if the opponent had made the claim earlier, like in this case, rebuttal or summary, and you hadn't answered to it in like the speech right after, then you can't talk about it in final focus because you've already had your chance beforehand to respond to that point, but you can't do it in final focus anymore. You can try to, and actually later on, one of the drills that we're going to do is if your partner drops something in a previous speech and like didn't respond to it, how to cover from it. That's going to be a drill that we're going to do.
So you can only respond to stuff that like was in the speech right before?
No, you can't only respond to it, but you need to respond to the stuff in like the stuff before it, especially if you think that they're going to like be like that's going to be their main point. Like, yeah. And and of course you have to extend your points too. Are the arguments different in public forum? Can you elaborate on that? I can't hear you. Nicole, I think you asked, are the arguments different in public forum? I'm not sure what you mean about that. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, you're muted right now.
Okay. We're going to post it on our website. So reasonfordebate.com.
It's also going to be on the YouTube.
Yeah. What else can we talk about? If you guys want, we can do some drills too. I have some fun drills that we can do. Sarith, since you just joined us, all we're doing right now is we're just asking questions. If you guys have any questions relating to public forum, just at all, please feel free to ask and we will answer. Oh, also, if you guys are going to be competitive for next season, one thing that you have to know is that there are topics every 1 to 2 months. So the next topic is going to be for September and October. Now, I think the topics have already released for it. And if you want to get a competitive edge and start prepping right now so that you'll be ready to go to tournaments and stuff by the time of September, October, I'm going to have another office hour. I'm not sure when it is this week, but I'm going to be going over those 2 topics. Yeah, they're different. Yeah. In policy, Lincoln Douglas, and public forum, they're all different topics. Public forum topics are going to be mainly policy resolutions, like should we pass this policy, or what were the pros or cons to passing this policy. In Lincoln Douglas, you're going to get more of like is this like good or not? Is this good or bad? Like the morality behind it. Like should we abolish plea bargaining? Like is plea bargaining in itself good or bad? Policy, you're going to get a year-long resolution in which you can do whatever you want with it. Like you can do whatever you want with it. Like literally the entire topic for this year is on criminal justice reform, and it's such a broad topic you can do whatever you want with it.
I have a question.
Yeah. Who said they wanted a question?
Sarith.
Yeah.
So in evidence, is paraphrasing like okay, or do you have to quote? Because I remember it coming up earlier.
I like your question. So paraphrasing versus keeping cards in case. So that's actually a big debate. Sorry, that's a big topic of controversy and debate. I don't want to say it's a big debate and debate because that's weird. But some people do paraphrase, some people do use cards. Usually it's a matter of personal preference. Pros and cons. Pros of using paraphrasing is that it's just like a lot easier to like, you don't have to like read the entire article. Like you can summarize it up in your own words so that you can talk about more cards and make more points. I personally like paraphrasing. Pro of card cutting is that you can using cut cards in your case is that you get the exact author, like you're exactly what they were saying if you're reading the card. Con of card is that it takes time, and you don't necessarily need to know like exactly what the author was saying. You just need to know like the main point or the point that you need. The con to paraphrasing is that if you go into a higher level of public forum, or if you're going to do Lincoln Douglas or policy, then you definitely need to do use cut cards in your case, because you will run into theory arguments that basically say that it's bad for education, it's bad for norms to paraphrase. I disagree with that. I have like a whole like rebuttal planned out for it if someone read it against me, but it's usually better just to read cards in case so that they don't even make that claim. But yeah, it's just not yeah, does that answer your question? It's basically personal preference, and it won't really matter for this tournament. Do you think public forum is easier than Lincoln Douglas? Yeah, it's pretty much easier. But as you get to higher levels, like they basically get too much of the same. General layout of public forum. Yeah, so I can do a, see if it'll allow. There, can you see this? All right.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
So, I'm in PF right now, but I was thinking of switching to LD or something else. Would like switch if I feel like I want to be more independent because I'm more independent. Would I And I like PF though. Would I like switch to LD or policy, or which one's like most similar?
If you want to be independent and just work entirely by yourself, then Lincoln Douglas is probably your thing because it's entirely one-on-one. You don't debate with a partner. I don't know. I like debating with a partner, so that's why I do public forum. But yeah, if you want to just do it by yourself, then Lincoln Douglas is probably best for you. Okay, so this is what a round looks like. You have so these 4 in the beginning right here, these are the constructives. 4 basically means this is the amount of time that you get for it. So you have 4 minutes to go over your arguments. Then your opponent comes up and gives 4 minutes for their arguments. Why can't it let me do it? There we go. Then your opponent comes up and has 4 minutes to give their arguments. Then 3-minute crossfire. Crossfire we're also going to go over later on. Crossfire is basically when do you guys know what first and second speakers are?
Yeah.
Okay. Crossfire is just, this first crossfire is where the first speakers crossfire against each other and just like, it's basically like they just go back and forth over these arguments. Then 4-minute rebuttal for each one where they're just refuting against their opponent's case. Then you have a 3-minute crossfire of just the second speakers, of just the people who did the rebuttal. Then the first speakers come up again and give a summary. The summary is just going over, it's basically the first time where they're giving an explanation of what's going on in the round. Each one gets 3 minutes. And in that round, in that time, you're supposed to extend your rebuttal, defend your case, and do some weighing at the end. Then you have 3 minutes where everyone in the round is allowed to talk and allowed to debate. This is the grand crossfire. Then in these 2 minutes, this is where you and your opponent, the second speakers, give their final focus. And it's basically just a summary, but you're crystallizing it down even more. Yes, in public forum, there are 2 speakers.
So is the final focus just like more like a better version of the constructive?
The constructive is giving the initial arguments in the round. So that's it. I'm trying to think how to best frame it, but I don't know. It's just giving it, so constructive is like, here is our arguments for the round. This is the basis of what we're debating. Final focus is like, now you've heard the entire round. What are the main points from it? What is like the takeaway? Like, what are the important rebuttal things that you have to remember? What is the important parts of our case that you should remember? And third, why should, even if all of their stuff holds true and ours holds true, why is ours better? That's what weighing is. Is even if both of our impacts are still given to both people, why is our impact matter more than the others? If you want to go over high school tournaments or anything like that too, we can also go over that.
Should we go like more into weighing, because like weighing is like a very important part of public forum?
Sure.
Yeah.
We actually, there's going to be a lecture later on this week about weighing, but I can actually just give weighing right now.
Like the different kinds of weighing, like probability and magnitude.
For students in this call who are new to public forum or don't entirely understand the structure, I am putting a link here. You can click on this if you want to read more about what each of the speeches is about, what speaker you might want to be, the order of the speeches, the structure. It might be like somewhat outdated, but it's mostly true. If you guys want to look in the chat. Sorry to interrupt. Continue.
Do you mind if I edit this, Megan? Because some of the speech times are incorrect.
Oh, yeah. I believe we used this like
while ago. Yeah, I'll give you editing access. Okay, it should be that you can edit it now.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Megan. And if you guys want to check it out, then definitely do it. All right, so yes, I can go over Wang because I think that Wang's a big part of debate, as Amer said.
Yeah, Wang can basically like win you the round. Like a good summary with Wang.
So, okay, so Wang, so basically you can put weighing, I'd say you should start weighing in the second rebuttal. Although you definitely need to do it in summary and in final focus. We are going to have a separate lecture on weighing, but we can still talk about it now. And I'm trying to find my notes.
Typically, weighing is like comparing your arguments to the other team's arguments and saying, oh, ours is like much heavier, which is why you should consider ours more than the others. And there are like many different factors you can take in to decide this.
Yeah. So, okay, weighing. Weighing is giving reasons to prefer one argument over another underneath the overall framework of the round. So it's just saying that both arguments, so say that like you were advocating for this thing and it's going to prevent climate change. But then the opponent comes up and says that they are advocating for this thing that's going to lead to stopping recession. If both of your links are true and there's no else rebuttal that you can do, what weighing basically is just giving you reasons why you should prefer climate change over recession, recession over climate change. Reasons why you should weigh. Takes work away from the judge. When you weigh, it makes it easier and clear who's winning. It trades off with defense. So in your rebuttal and stuff, you're going to have to do defense against the opponent's case. You can weigh instead of doing defense. And it's sometimes even better to do it. Judges need a scoreboard of the round, and the weighing gives you that. It gives you a better and more efficient strategy and like you can actually plan it out before the round, like, oh, because like you know what your impacts are going to be, and you can say that like, oh, if they try and bring up recession, then here's how we weigh against it. If they try and bring up nuclear war, here's how we weigh against it. And lastly, it's a great place for rhetoric and persuasion, which is overall very good for pathos and ethos. How to weigh well. You got to think about it early. Think about it before your round, honestly. Warrant your weighing. What that means is that you need to give your impact. You need to give your links. You need to explain what it means. You can't just say like, weigh for us because there's a greater probability it will happen. No, give me reasons why there's a greater probability. Also, I'm going to talk about mechanisms, weighing mechanisms. Pick one or two of them instead of good ones, instead of 5 or 6 bad ones, and really explain them well. Yeah. Okay, so the main type of weighing that you'll usually do is impact calculus. Impact calculus is just weighing, impact calculus is basically just weighing what the impacts are at the end of the round. And there are 3 main ways that people do that. First is magnitude. How severe is the impact? How big is it? So you can have, say that like you have national recession versus global climate change. If you were to make a recession thing, you would say that climate change has a greater magnitude because it affects the entire population, the entire global population, whereas recession only affects the country that's in it. There's where you get your magnitude because it's greater than the other impact. Probability. How likely is this impact? So you could say that like climate change is more probable than nuclear war because climate change is basically happening already. It's already inevitable, and only a push off the bridge, which is what the plan does, is what's going to lead to it. Third, time frame. How long or when is this impact going to happen? There are 2 types of this. If you're saying that your impact is long-term versus short-term, climate change is going to have a long-term impact. It's irreversible. That's why you should prefer it over anything else. You can also make a time frame weighing on urgency, saying that this is going to happen first, so it's more important that we address this and then we go on to something else. Yeah. There's also such thing as interactive weighing. This is when your links or impacts interact, and like one happens before the other. For example, you have a prerequisite. This basically means that one impact needs to happen in order for the other to happen. So you could say that economic growth is a prerequisite to climate change. Because when you have economic growth, that means you can get more green technology. When you have green technology, that means you can stop climate change. So it's a prerequisite and it solves back for it. You can also have a short circuit. This means that one impact stops the other from happening. For example, this would be corruption, like a corruption in government versus foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment basically is investment that comes to the government and gets trickulated down to the people. You could say that corruption short circuits FDI because when there's corruption in government, the officials take the FDI for themselves and they don't let it trickle down to the people. These are some examples of interactive weighing. The second type of weighing that you can do is link comparison. Usually you do this when your impacts are the same. So say that you're both saying that we're going to prevent climate change. How are you going to weigh one versus the other? What you do then is you look at the different links. You look at the warrants and the empirics. If you have more empirics than the other does, or if you have empirics and the other doesn't, then that's very, very good, because you can basically just say, oh, this has happened in the past, it's going to happen in the future. You have something called strength of link and clarity of link. Strength of link basically means, like, has this been responded to? If the link has not been responded to at all if this link has not been responded to at all or has very limited responses on it, then that has a large strength of link, because there's been little amounts of hits to the argument, a small amount of hits to the link. That's why it would have a strength of link, because it's very strong, because no one's been hitting it. Clarity of link means how clear is it. If you give a clear contextualized link with empirics, you're giving analysis, rhetoric, all that sort of stuff, then you have a very clear link. That's when you have clarity of link. Third, you can do warrant interaction. The best type of warrant interaction, and one that I really, really, really love, is actor incentives. So actor incentives is, why is someone investing? Why is someone doing something? And if you can say why someone is doing something, then that can apply to the impact. For example, there was a topic on Belt and Road Initiative a while back. It was basically saying that China is going to build this economic pathway is going to build this economic empire for nations to join and just have like a global hegemony versus a global economic hegemony. So one of the main arguments was that China is going to export green technology into other countries. Now, if you look at that at a first glance, then that's great. But if you look through it through the eyes of actor incentives, then you can get in some bad territory there. Because the actor incentives of why would they want to shift out green tech? Well, they might want to do it so that they can just have more economic control over other countries. Also, it just helps China's economic growth. Now, those at first glance don't seem like bad things, but if you do more research, then you'll find that it might not be the best idea for China to do that. Lastly, you have evidence comparison. I personally don't really like evidence comparison because it feels just like, great, you have one author knocked off the flow. Now on to 20 others. Evidence comparison is basically when you're looking at the author's credentials, how recent is the evidence, what is the sample size they used in their evidence, what is the date of the data set. And it's basically saying like this author is invalid because it's too far away or something. The only time when I'd really say it, if you're talking about politics and you're using something back when like 2016, when like Obama was in office and like the resolution has to do with Trump. Yeah, but that's mainly what weighing is. And we are each going to do it in their own respective labs in order to like explain it to you all. And they're gonna do a lot better job than I did. Okay. Do you guys have any questions about that? And if you want, we can actually do drills on it too. Drills, sure. We can do weighing drills. Those are a lot of fun. Does anyone want to do it too? Surith wanted to do it. Would anyone like to try it with Surith? If not, I can do it with you.
I think in the chat, Chanzi said yes too.
Oh, cool. Chanzi. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you two will do it. So
and not just type into the chat.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Surith a specific impact, and I'm going to give you an impact. And you're just going to say, why does your impact matter more than the other person's impact? Why does your impact matter more than the other person's impact? Try and use the mechanisms that we explained today. It affects more people, magnitude. It's more likely to happen, probability. It's going to happen sooner, or it's going to have a long-term effect, time frame. So with that being said, maybe have some pen and paper out. I'll give you like a minute 30 to like think about it. And then you say like a minute of as many reasons, as many well-developed reasons as you can of why it's more important. So without further ado, we will have Surith, you'll have climate change, and John Z, you'll have recession. So Surith, you're saying why climate change is greater than recession is a better impact, and John Z, you're saying why recession is a bigger impact than climate change.
Can we search stuff up?
Sorry?
Can we search up like stuff about our topic?
If you want to, but try and think like as analytically and as logically as you can.
Okay.
This might be giving something away, but like recessions, I mean, aren't depressions like recessions that last a long time? So would that be like, so would they be able to argue that that a recession could cause a depression and then link those and then argue that a depression would have a higher impact?
You could definitely do that. As long as you give a warranted reason why something would happen, you could say anything. I could say that eating more meat will cause global extinction if I prove it. All right, so that's time. Would either of you guys like to go first?
I can go first.
Awesome. So just give a minute speech.
Okay. Climate change is more likely to come faster than a recession. I mean, a depression than a recession if it would cause it. Climate change lasts for a long time, while recessions can be recovered from. climate change affects all living beings, not just humans, which gives it a higher population that it's going to kill out. And climate change is completely irreversible. Oh, climate change takes hundreds or thousands of years to reverse, but recessions don't. That's all I had.
Nice.
Wait.
No, I don't. So
Well,
I'll give my comments after. So whenever you're ready.
okay. So a recession has more impact than climate change because it can lead to economic instability, and that means that we wouldn't be able to do anything about climate change, since to help climate change you need resources and need to be financially stable. But if you're in a recession, then that can lead to a depression and people are struggling to survive, and then there's job loss, and then it's too late to care about like green stuff because it's going to lay a lot more people off, since that would mean that you will have to cut down on fossil fuel industries, etc. And climate change, it's a big thing, but it's very gradual, and recessions can like affect a lot of people in a shorter amount of time, which is why recession is more impactful than climate change.
Awesome. Great job, both of you guys. And thank you for taking the initiative to work in the drill. A little bit of feedback for you guys. When you're actually in a debate round, it's a lot more helpful if you number off your responses. It makes it easier for the judge to remember. So just say like first this, second this. It just makes it easier. What I really liked about Chanzi's is that you actually warranted out your weighing. Surith, you definitely have more weighing mechanisms and ones that were very, very good. But what I would have liked to see more was that you actually warranted out. You just gave me like a sentence of this leads to this, but you're not really saying why it's leading to this. You know what I'm saying? Kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
Gotcha. But yeah, that's.
I have some feedback too. So I thought everyone did really well, or like both of you guys did really well. So for the climate change stuff, when Surith is talking about time frame, I understand why you're talking about how like it lasts for a long time, but I kind of think of time frame as also how long it takes to reach that terminal impact. So maybe that's like environmental destruction, maybe that's like extinction or whatever. So typically, I think we like to think of climate change as actually losing mainly on time frame because it takes a lot of time for us to reach kind of that terminal brink of being able to see like, you know, people quite literally dying from so and so. At least in round, I usually see it as, you know, always on magnitude because of all these like irreversibility kind of arguments, and then also how it's global, which you did mention too. And then I think what Chanzi said about how climate change is gradual, I think that makes sense. But right after that, she said like a recession impacts a lot of people. I think because you're focusing on time frame in that sentence, you should talk about how a recession is much quicker, right? So the second half of that is comparing your impact and then explaining right after you're saying that climate change is very slow, like why recession is very quick. Maybe you can talk about how like the economy is set up in a way where it's like stock market investors, they see the stock market dropping, or they see all these potential like pitfalls, and they immediately can start pulling their investments out, and how that can trigger a lot of different events to happen really quickly. Just a thought.
Yeah, exactly what Abby said.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we can do more of those drills, or we can do drills on other stuff, or I can keep on, or I can answer you guys' questions. Remember, this is entirely what you guys want to do. Or we can end it early if you guys just want to go home.